Pandora's box has been opened. Now, what do I mean by that? Okay, so like probably a lot of you out there, I wake up early in the morning and I start thinking about things, right? I start thinking about things I'm working on the channel, interviews I have coming up. I've got an interview coming up with Jeff Berlin on Sunday. And look, I'm not a bass player. I don't pretend to be. I never studied with Victor Wooten or Steve Bailey. I never studied with Jeff Berlin. But I did attend school for a summer session at Berklee in Boston. And I did go to GIT. And I did a year of at a conservatory, but not studying music. I did another year of college. So I've had a decent amount of education, on music, but I'm no expert, man. I'm just a player, I'm just a player. And when I say Pandora's box has been open, right? What I'm saying is, there used to be what they called the academic method of learning. And learning music is learning how to sight read and, focusing, I think, primarily on that, the transcription and these methods, right? But there's many different paths that players have taken. If your goal is to be a working musician, if your goal is to, maybe be a rock star or whatever else, does it really matter how you got there? Can you not possibly learn from other players in different methods of teaching? I certainly think so. You look at a guy like Stevie Ray Vaughan, who, apparently they say he didn't even know what keys he was playing in. I find that hard to believe, but, this certainly wasn't a guy, I don't think, that was ever reading music. I think he was a player, man. He just played. He had natural ability. And look, here's the thing, man. There are plenty of people that learn the academic method, but maybe they don't have as much talent as somebody else, and they're not able to take that academic method to the same heights as another player. These are things that are getting me thinking this morning, thinking about my journey studying. Okay, so when I went to Berklee, right, and it was just a summer program, I was not, wasn't even out of high school, right? But I can remember, okay, we had sight reading class, we had theory class, we had improvisation labs. We had these different things and different focuses on those things when you were in that class. And then the same thing with GIT, right? We would have, I forget the guy's name that did the sight reading class at GIT, but let me know in the comments. That was like his thing. He taught the reading class. And then you had ear training, and then you had improvisation, and there was a country class, and there was I think some of these things you could sign up for and decide, I want to take the country class or I want to take the rock course, and so there were different classes and different focuses on those classes, and not all of the classes focused on sight reading. Some of them would be scale diagrams or chord diagrams and different things like that. And so, here's the other thing. So, leaving school and then entering into the real world, playing in a hair band obviously, I wasn't doing any sight reading. I didn't really need to know a ton of scales, although, it was the 80s, so knowing your scales, it could definitely help with the flavor of what you were playing, right? But I'm trying to make this clear, crystal clear, like a diamond bullet. Here's the thing, man. You have all these different methods of teaching, and who is to say that one method is wrong? Who is to say that you can't get something from everybody? There was a teacher at Berklee, guitar teacher of some sort. I don't remember the focus of the class, but I can remember before we played anything, the beginning of the class, the teacher just going on a tirade of some sort, saying, "You guys are terrible. You can't play anything. You're awful." All of this stuff. And I'm just like, what? Is this the academic method? Is this a proper way of teaching? Here I am. This was probably 1982 or 83, right? Surely that was the height of the academic studying period at Berklee College of Music in Boston. Across from Daddy's Junkie Music, across from that little 79-cent pizza place or whatever it was, 99 cents, you get a slice. You go, "Slice, you want slice?" Slice and a Coke, 99 cents. We lived off of that slice and a Coke. But I digress. It just seems like if I'm not getting something from a teacher, if you're studying with somebody or learning how to play music, you can learn from everybody. Perhaps the lesson I learned in the class where the teacher said we're all terrible is I learned how not to teach. I learned how not to treat people. How certainly not to teach young people wanting to learn. Maybe that's the lesson I learned on that. Pandora's box is open, meaning there are many different ways people learn. There are many different ways people get to their destination, the destination of maybe being a professional musician or going on tour or going on the road or playing gigs or even just playing songs at home. Some people, that's all they want to be able to do, or, write their own music. And the academic method is one way that you could get there. The academic method is one way you could get there. But let me give you an example. When I was in high school, I joined the high school jazz band. I went to public school my last 2 years of high school because they had a jazz band. And I had to audition for the jazz band. And the piece that I was given to audition for it was a chord chart, a chord sheet, or it was a piece of music that we were going to play. But my part was written above the staff, and it was chord changes, right? So reading a piece of music, a lot of times for guitar, let's say you're given I think it's called a lead sheet, right? It's like a real book page. And if you're in a jazz, combo or something like that, you might have guitar, bass, drums, and a sax player, right? And if you're playing songs out of the real book, they are jazz standards, and the melody is written in notes on the staff, and then the chords are written above the staff. As a guitar player or as a keyboard player, generally, you would play the melody which would require learning how to read it or figure it out, right? And then you would play, but if there's a sax player or somebody else playing the head, and the head being the melody, I would count the chords. I would play the chords. And so when I was in high school jazz band and I auditioned for the piece, it was a chord on every beat. It was a chord on every beat. And it was not an easy thing for at that time, high school kid who grew up playing Chuck Berry songs and Elvis songs and stuff like that. It wasn't easy for me to figure out. And I took it to my teacher, and he told me, he said, look, we're going to do it one beat at a time. We're going to figure this out so that you can get this, get the gig in the jazz band. And so it was me and the incumbent player. The incumbent player, no one had heard anything he had played the year before. So when I went to the audition and I had practiced and learned the chords that I need to play the comp, they call it comping over the piece. The drummer turned around after I played and said, that's the first time I've heard guitar in this band in over a year. And that was shocking to me. That was shocking to me because, what do? Do you fake it for a year? I mean, we've all had to sometimes, unsure of a piece or waiting to hear the chord changes and maybe let a few bars go by before we figured out what we're supposed to be playing. But to fake it for an entire year in a big band, that seems insane. That seems absolutely insane. I would be embarrassed if I couldn't play anything and it was over my head. I think I'd probably say, hey, I can't do this, man. I've walked into situations before where I go, hey, I'm not the right guy for this gig. You need a different skill set. And that's okay, man. That's okay. But the horn players in the band had learned the academic method, reading music, reading melodies and doing all this stuff, right? But none of them could play an improvised solo. None of them could play an improvised solo. And so when it would say guitar solo in the piece, or if there was a solo in a piece that we needed to do, I became the guy. I became the guy that did it. Now, I didn't read music well at the time, barely at all. Everything I had learned had been, passed to me from teachers or written in a diagram or, or learned playing in the garage with the garage band. But I knew when it said B flat, I knew where to put my hands to find some right notes. And I had experimented enough of playing that I knew what could work. I knew how to play it safe. I knew how to play something that was pleasing to the ear. So the ones that had grown up reading everything, they had fostered no imagination. They had never had to improvise. And so they weren't able to play. So I have to think back and how I learned and what I was able to do. And look, I don't consider myself a great guitar player. I don't consider myself anything other than a guy who figured out what he needed to learn to play gigs and be confident and play to the best of my ability. And I had a period in my youth where I worked really hard on learning a few concepts that would carry me till today. I could play, I could still play a little bit, and I'm not, completely screwed if someone calls a real book tune or something. I can look at it, I can figure out what to play, I can count the chords, I can get through the tune. And so, you think about the road that you took, you think about the paths that you took, you think about different paths that other players took, other players like Victor Wooten or Stevie Ray Vaughan or Edward Van Halen or Jeff Beck or any of these other players. And you know that it probably wasn't one way. It was different for each guy. There was different paths taken for each person. But they all got to their destination. That some of them went on to be huge, influential players. And so there has to be in life an acceptance of different methods. Not everybody learns the same way. And it's the same thing with whether it's reading or writing or arithmetic or whatever basic knowledge that kids learn. Some need a little extra help. Some don't. Some pick it up super quick. Some people become someone that can read a book. I'm one of those people. I can read a book super fast and actually tell you what it says. But then others, it's a different process. We all have a different musical DNA. The things that made us musicians, different paths that we took, different things that we learned, different things that we liked. We grabbed bits and pieces from here, from there, to create our own sound. If you were to copy only one player, you would sound like that player. If you copy everybody, if you learn something from everything you listen to, then you're creating your own style. These are my thoughts on getting to the destination of being a good player. It's just my thoughts. I don't claim anything as facts. I don't claim that there's one way to do anything. I think there's more than one way to rock. I know they say there's only one way to rock, Sammy Hagar, but I think there's many ways to rock, and I think there's validity and truth in a lot of different styles and a lot of different methods. And it really doesn't matter how you got there, as long as you get to your destination.